Australia just needs to get back into business. Look, at least, Leisa, you've reported for the 10 Network a few years ago now, but nevertheless, you're a correspondent in the United States. I mean, Maurice Payne and Peter Dutton are both there. Scott Morrison goes there next week. This is a big deal, having three of our most senior ministers, people from traditional portfolios, defence, foreign affairs, and the Prime Minister themselves in the United States at this time. This decision, and in fact those visits, was well known. The Chinese started taunting around. I mean, it's almost like they're using the international date line as a territorial line in the sand for the future. They're playing around in the waters off Alaska in the economic exclusion zone there. You know, there's a bit of game playing going on. I'm not promoting that we've got to have a battle, and some will be saying, oh, you know, is this all war talk? No, it's not. This is about the ultimate form of defence, is the ability to be able to actually defend yourself. You know, that's the best way to keep yourself safe. But these meetings, this is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And just quickly back to a point Bronwyn made about the capabilities of the submarines.
Yep.
What this pact does, and by aligning with the UK and the US, is gives Australia extra weapons, it gives us extra arsenal to do exactly what you just said, Gary, which is defend our country should the time come that we need that. So you're going to see Tomahawk cruise missiles that we'll have access to, which can travel at 1,500 kilometres, as opposed to the ones we have now, which are 150 kilometres. That's a big difference. You're talking about when these subs do come online, you can get from Perth to the bottom of the South China Sea in a couple of days, as opposed to slowly chugging your way there over a number of weeks. Yeah. That time will make an enormous difference should this country be under threat. But you're right, what they've done in the US, and to see three of our senior people there in the States having the high-level meetings that they're having, and Dutton today didn't miss China at all. His words was basically that China has behaved in an immature way, and that China's basically made the case for exactly why Australia has taken the action that it has, and why Australia, the UK and the US have had to come together, because what they're doing and what they're saying is just embarrassing. And look, the Chinese propaganda machine has fired up. They're sending the torpedo of rhetoric language across already. Yeah. We're only going to, I predict, see a lot more of that. We copped it when we dared put our head up and said, look, there should be an investigation into what happened in Wuhan. That was the start of all of this. And now they're not happy about this at all, despite the fact they have 6 nuclear subs in the water right now. It's not a case of an arms race that they just don't want us in it. We've got to try and catch up. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and we're a long way behind. I mean, that's the point, Stephen. You know, we have the French government, understandably, they would have known months ago. I think Scott Morrison had a private dinner with the president, and I think there would have been explanations made there. They've made the public statements of, miad. They're not very happy. OK, I get it. I understand that. Joe Biden, I think, is still the weakest link in this AUKUS caucus. But we are now, as Australians, starting to say our security, our sovereignty matters. To Bronwyn's point, there is other stuff we've got to do. We'll try and talk about that tonight. But the China beast is somewhat wounded. It's almost as one is suggesting today, that China's worst enemy, Beijing's worst enemy, is Xi Jinping. The guy in charge is, in fact, doubling this rhetoric and creating an environment where the rest of the world's saying, hang on a second, we don't agree with this, pal, and we'll take you on if you want to take us on.
Well, absolutely, and that's why it's important that countries like the United States, the United Kingdom and Australia, and then if you go further than that to Five Eyes, well, except for New Zealand, but Five Eyes and ASEAN and the various other alliances that we're a part of, it's important that we start to exert a little bit of pressure. And as the old saying, I think it was Reagan that coined the phrase "peace through strength." You've got to build up your capabilities to actually show that you're not afraid of a hawkish nation like China. And onto the French issue too. So there was a suggestion that I read somewhere this morning that maybe this is an opportunity to actually put nuclear power in Australia back on the table by saying to the French, well, look, you've been dudded out of this sub deal. Maybe we can talk to you about some of your nuclear technology that you're powering your country with. But I was a little bit concerned that the Prime Minister seemed to take that off the table this morning and hose down suggestions that this might lead to civil nuclear power, which I think is equally important as the defence of the nation from a sovereignty perspective.
But it's a 20 years from now kind of point of view. The point here is that the Prime Minister can say that now. He's got an election in 20 weeks. Bronwyn, the point is we shouldn't be afraid to talk about this. We've got issues happening in Taiwan, an island of prosperity, an island of stability, an island of democracy like Australia. It may well be our Collins-class submarines may well be the best fit if anything's there. None of us want to see a battle. No one wants to see this. We don't want to see any problems. But when you start talking about Five Eyes, there's two of the eyes might need to be poked out, New Zealand, because this is an intelligence sharing arrangement between Canada, New Zealand, Australia, UK and the US. Canada's got an election on Monday and Trudeau may well go out the door, so things might change. But Jacinda Ardern has already said, oh, no, there's no way your submarines can come into our New Zealand ports. 20 years from now? Bronwyn, she's just another lefty. She's just another lefty.
Well, I did see something that was written that the new way of spelling New Zealand is new and then X-I-L-A-N-D. She seems far more interested in getting along. Yes, far more interested in getting on with President Xi than she does getting on with what has been
we'll get letters. Well,
but the bottom line is that with the nuclear submarines, we won't need to be in the ports of New Zealand anyway. But I guess if trouble broke out, she'd be perfectly happy to see us giving protection to New Zealand. But what a silly statement to make when we're talking about having these boats in the water in 2040. I mean, she'll be long gone. So we just have to go through this period, I think, of her being there and being as woke as she is, and then we'll re-establish when they change government sometime along the way. But it's if I can just say that with the statements that Peter Dutton has made today made it absolutely correct, and I can understand why the French are angry. But I was surprised at the comments made by the former ambassador to the United States when he said that these contracts were essential strategic contracts to France, and the United States knew that and didn't care. Well, I'm sorry, I don't know what Malcolm Turnbull might have said to you, but this is in Australia's interests, not France's interest, and that we will do what is right for Australia. And it's not about, to quote Catherine McGregor, it's not about welfare, it's about warfare. So we have to be strategic in our thinking, and that contract went wrong from day one. So the points that you make about maybe nuclear strategy, but also I would point out that we have Thales, which is a very fine defence industry firm, which is here. It took over ADI. It provides a lot of services and equipment here in Australia, and we will continue to have good relationships with France in the defence area. But on the question of the submarines, those were never going to work.